Check the description for the following discount codes. I think the most asked question in my review of the CSL DD was, Carl, can you put it on the Playseat challenge and show us whether it's any good or not, or whether the Playseat can take it, so to speak? And the second most asked question would have been the same thing about the FGT light from Next Level Racing or the GT light. Now, I don't have either of those foldable cockpits anymore. I do still have my Playseat challenge. The Next Level Racing foldable cockpits, as far as like sturdiness goes and rigidity and flex, is very, very comparable to the Playseat challenge. If you watched either of my reviews of those, you'll see that I compare them and I say they're pretty much just as solid as one another, or just as flimsy as one another, because obviously being foldable, they're not that solid. So what you see here will equally apply to either of those two as well, at least in my experience. Now, one thing I will point out straight away is I've got this wheel deck mounted as far back this way as I can so that this steering wheel wasn't hitting me in the face. I wanted to try out this big ass rally wheel, and obviously it puts it quite a distance from the wheelbase into the cabin, so to speak. So I've put this wheel deck all the way back. If you were to run it like on the next set of screw holes in, we'd probably see a little less flex than what we do here, but probably not by a lot, because ultimately this is quite a heavy wheelbase. With this particular steering wheel and the podium hub, there's quite a lot of leverage on it as well. And as you can see, obviously it does flex a fair bit. Now, this is a Playseat challenge, so it's gonna flex. We've got to manage our expectations here. It's not gonna be like a solid cockpit. So yeah, that's just something to note. It is on there, so I've got maximum leverage sort of in favor of the weight of the wheelbase rather than the Playseat challenge. If you moved it in a bit, it might be less so. Although saying that, once I'm holding the steering wheel, having this sort of all the way forward may even act as a bit of a counterbalance to the forces that I'll be putting on the steering wheel. So actually maybe it isn't the worst place to have it. But anyway, that's where that is. One thing I've noticed straight away is the whole rig is now very front heavy. If I just use one finger and lift the Playseat, it wants to fall over. Literally like very light, and away it's going to go. So just something to bear in mind if you buy one of these to fit to one of these. It will vary depending on your driving position. If you have a more relaxed driving position, it's probably not going to happen. But in this position that I'm sat in, as you can see, it does want to fall forward all of its own accord. Now, again, not a problem when you're sat in it, of course. So let's get in it now. And we're going to do a little blast in Dirt Rally. Now, this is interesting. When you open this up, I know I'm off camera, but shit happens. When you open this up, it doesn't actually fall over. I mean, how close are we? No, it's pretty. You can give it a little nudge and it will come back. So not quite as out of balance left to right as it is front to back. But again, once you're in, doesn't really matter anyway. So I'm using my Logitech G920 pedals and G920 shifter and my cheapo Amazon handbrake bolted on the side here. And just in case for any reason you might need to do this exact setup, the way I'm actually got my pedals and shifter plugged into the G920, which is sat here on the floor, and that is powered up and all plugged in through that. All I had to do in Dirt Rally was choose my Fanatec wheel as the primary steering device, and it still then accepts the inputs from the pedals and shifter. Because the issue is you can buy a USB adapter for the pedals. I'm sure I've even got one kicking about somewhere, but I don't know if you can get one for the shifter. And I've got no paddles on this steering wheel. So I was either gonna have to drive automatic and find the USB adapter for the pedals, or just try leaving the G920 plugged in, which is what I've done, and hoping that it wasn't going to sit on the floor, spinning the wheel, mirroring what I'm doing here. Oh, I've forgotten to put any gloves on, never mind. Or that it would actually accept, steering from one input and shifter and pedal inputs from another device, which it does. Anyway, that's a bit of waffleage and a bit beside the point. This is actually my first proper go. I rode up the road about 100 yards just to make sure the gears did work and the pedals and everything all worked. So this will be my genuine first proper experience with this. I've just picked a really short stage in New Zealand. I don't even know if I've driven it before, and this Mitsubishi Evo. So let's just have a little blast. Going to feel weird without gloves. Actually, it's all going to feel weird because when was the last time I used a Playseat challenge? Handbrake's down here instead of up here. It's all strange. Oh yeah, that handbrake feels well out of place. Anyway, what was I going to say? So the settings for the wheel are exactly how I had them on the GT Amiga Titan. I haven't changed anything. So this is set up as I would use it. Whoop. And in fairness, it doesn't feel too bad. I keep missing my handbrake. Yeah, it doesn't feel too bad. I'm sure the reality is it's wobbling like mad. But it doesn't feel too bad. I can't say I'm sort of noticeably missing any of the details or forces. I mean, I will be, because it's going to be like dampening effectively like crazy with all the flex and the wobble. And this is with the 8 Newton meter power supply. Obviously, there's no point testing it with a 5 because the 5 is going to be less wobbly than what this is. So this is the one we really need to know. As always, driving and talking is not good for me. Plus, I can't hear the co-driver. Whoa. But I actually think this feels all right. It's vibrating the Playseat just as much as it was vibrating my GT Amiga Titan. So you're getting your vibration effects and your force feedback effects as we're going over the terrain and crashing into things. I've kind of given up using the handbrake because I'd have to look down and see where it is, and that's just ball ache. Anyway, it's not about my driving on this particular video, not that it ever is. It's about how the little Playseat does. So we got a nice, I don't know if you'd have seen that in the video, we just went over that cattle grid there, and there was a lovely vibration through this, very similar to what my tactile transducers do. That was actually really quite impressive. I mean, it shook the whole seat, but I mean, that's kind of what you want in actual fact. It's funny, this Playseat never ceases to amaze what you can actually do with it. I mean, it is only an 8 Newton meter wheel at the end of the day. You know, if we were to put the DD1 on here, which other people have done on YouTube, obviously the results are going to be piss poor. But for this little 8 Newton meter one, yeah, we're doing all right. I mean, again, if this is what you need, a foldable cockpit, but you want the smoothness, the torque, the instant response of a direct drive wheel, seems pretty decent to me. Whoop. Anything I will say is, the steering wheel's a little bit high for me, and there's no real way to lower it. I mean, I am using a huge real life rally wheel, so if you were using something smaller, then it wouldn't be quite so in your face, I guess. So, first impressions then. I mean, obviously, look, it wobbles like mad, but it's a Playseat challenge, it's going to. And in reality, you're not really pushing backwards and forwards like I am there. We're steering left to right, but hopefully you've seen it in the video to see exactly what it moves like. But I'm actually pretty impressed. Now, this is, like I say, it's with the 8 Newton meter power supply, and the settings are on the settings I was using and what I would use if this was my daily wheelbase. What I'm going to do now is turn the force feedback all the way up, and we'll see. There it is, Fanatec wheel, so primary steering device. Yeah, we'll see how it does with all this. Now, in the control panel, the drivers, sorry, it's already at 100%. All my wheelbases I run at 100% in the drivers. So in this case, Fanatec drivers or Fanatec options. The reason for that is if you limit it there, why did you buy an 8 Newton meter wheel or a 20 Newton meter wheel in the case of the DD1? If you bought a wheel because you want to have that power available, don't turn it down in the drivers, because you're literally limiting every sim title, every game that you want to use is already going to be held back from being able to use the steering wheel's full torque. So I leave that 100%, and then I will tune it in game. So like the opposite of what I've just done here, everything's now at 100%. It was at obviously way less, but that means the full strength of the wheelbase is available should whatever game you're playing require it. So yeah, that's already 100%. This is now at 100%. So let's do that stage again and not only see how it feels with maximum strength through the wheel. I haven't actually done a 100% force feedback test, so it looks like we're doing it on the Playseat challenge. Let's see how the seat takes it.
3, 2, 1, go. One right, very long. Opens 30.
Cool, yeah. As expected, it feels a lot heavier. So this will be giving it everything it's got. You know, and as I said in my review, for most of the time, the sort of 8 Newton meters that this has is enough for me. I can feel, you know, obviously it isn't there compared to the DD1, but it's less than half the price. So, you know, can't really expect it to be, but it's still plenty heavy enough. And you know, I'm using a full-size real-life rally wheel here, which adds a load of leverage in my favour, making the wheel have to work harder. Oh, that was a question someone asked me as well, because they said, have you tried this wheel yet? And I said I hadn't, because it would have hit me in the chest when I had it on the GT Omega Titan. But yeah, now that I am trying it, even though I've got this extra leverage, the little 8 Newton meter motor is still enough to give you the detail you want and the forces you want to feel, you know. Again, it's never going to compare with the bigger direct drive wheels, but it's not supposed to. You know, it's supposed to remove the need for belt-driven wheels, because most people who could afford, especially a Fanatec belt-driven wheel, can probably afford one of these. Someone also said it's a shame the Fanatec wheels are so expensive. And that is true, the Fanatec wheels are expensive compared to the likes of the Thrustmaster ones. But even then, and I pointed this out to the guy in the comments, your Thrustmaster, TSPC Racer, TSXW, TGT, they're like 400 odd notes without a wheel. And then if you actually add in one of the licensed Sparco wheels from Thrustmaster, they're another couple of hundred notes. So you're up to £600 for a wheelbase and a wheel, you know, from Thrustmaster. You know, and if we look at the CSL DD here, there's that cattle grid again. You must, hopefully you saw that, like the way it really shook, because that was really quite good. Yes, CSL DD is 350 quid, and then the cheapest Fanatec wheel, I think, is £200, which brings it to 550. So, you know, that's actually 50 quid cheaper than a Thrustmaster setup. This is their retail website prices. I haven't shopped around, you might find better deals. But, you know, there'd just be no reason to buy a Thrustmaster TSPC Racer when you can buy the CSL DD. It's just a better wheel. In fact, to be honest, where's this hairpin? To be honest, I think Thrustmaster are going to have to either massively drop the price of their wheels. God, that's heavy. Or bring out, you know, something equivalent to try and compete. You know, maybe a DD of their own for a similar price tag, because at the moment there's just no reason to buy one of their belt-driven offerings when the price is comparable to this. Now the T300 or TX is quite a bit cheaper, so that still has, you know, a part of the market there. You've got your Logitech G920 at the very sort of bottom end of usable wheels that you might actually want. And then the T300 TX is a step up from that. It does feel quite a bit better. And then nowadays you're going to be up to this CSL DD. You know, foregoing the old Fanatec belt-driven ones that are no longer available, and the Thrustmaster top-end belt-driven ones, TSPC, TSXW. Yeah, let's see. You know, one-handed steering here is pretty heavy for such a relatively weak wheel. Anyway, that's enough of that waffleage. So, what are my thoughts? I actually think if this is what you've got and you want one of these, you should go ahead and do it. It's still a much nicer experience than a G920 bolted to one of these. You know, you've got all the benefits of direct drive. It's still better than a belt-driven equivalent. And again, when we're talking 8 Newton meters versus 8 Newton meters, you know, with the old Fanatec belt-driven stuff, the Playseat's not going to wobble any more now than it did then. And yeah, of course it is wobbling, but it's a Playseat. We expect it to be. You know, as I say, maybe if this plate was on the holes a touch closer to me, we'd have a little bit less, but probably not by a lot. But yeah, so that's what you're all asking for, and there it is, the Playseat Fanatec CSL Direct Drive Challenge video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, take it easy.